All right, the Michigan spring game was this past weekend on Saturday. We watched it and streamed it live here on the channel. So if you were along for the ride during that stream, you probably heard some of my thoughts on the game. But for those of you that weren't, I figured we'd talk about it right now. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And too, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Even if you've been around for a while, I've been hearing from people lately that they got unsubscribed. This happens on YouTube sometimes. They go, I don't know if it's like a glitch or what happens, but anyway, double check. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. I would really appreciate it. It's free to subscribe, and it's a big help to me. Hit the thumbs up, click the bell notifications icon. Make sure you get notified every time we post a video or go live. Time to talk about the Michigan spring game, and Michigan's got a quarterback problem. Now, they can add that to the list of other problems they have, which include currently being on probation from their COVID cheating, whatever it was, what they did back in 2020, and the still yet to come possibility, at least, of sanctions from getting caught cheating this past season with the whole Connor Stallions incident and illegal advanced in-game scouting or whatever with all that. We're not going to, my feelings on all that are well known, no sense in getting into it here, but they did get put on probation for, I believe, 3 years for the 2020 scandal. Investigation is still underway for the 2023 Connor Stallions advanced sign stealing scandal thing. And if you watch the spring game, they've got a quarterback issue. Now, J.J. McCarthy had been there for years, and he's gone, and they don't have really anybody behind him with a ton of experience. Alex Orji did play some, particularly last year. Not just mop-up duty either. They would put him in sort of spot situations here and there. But he's really the only returning quarterback on the roster with a whole, with really any notable experience at all. And my takeaways from the spring game for Michigan are pretty clear. I think their defense, just like we thought heading into the spring game, if we've been paying attention at all, their defense looked pretty good. They should have a really good defense this season. They did lose a lot off of last year's team, but it was mostly offensive production. Now, they lost a few key pieces off the defensive side of the ball, but I think Michigan's going to have a really, really good defense again in 2024, and you kind of saw that in the spring game. If you watch the game, sort of 50,000-foot view, top down, what did it look like? The defense looks better than the offense. That doesn't mean anything in and of itself, right? One unit's always better than the other, and Michigan's going to have a really good defense again. The quarterback situation, though, at Michigan is an interesting one to me. I'll go through the stats in a second, but just if you watch the game, I'd be curious if anybody disagrees with me here. The second guy is clearly a better passer of the football. You used to could just say he's a better quarterback, because we used to associate quarterbacks with throwing the football, and that was it. That, of course, has changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years, sort of, not just in college, but in the NFL, even in high school. And you see a lot of quarterbacks that can run around a little. The term dual threat QB has, you know, we all know what that is now. Over the last 20 years, you see a lot of that. Well, you see a lot of the phrase dual threat quarterback. You actually don't see that many, in my opinion, true dual threat quarterbacks. You have a lot of quarterbacks that can stand in the pocket and throw the ball, what we refer to now as pocket passers, right? And then you have a lot of quarterbacks that can run around, but they really can't throw the ball. Jalen Milroe is not some elite level passer at Bama, right? We call him a dual threat quarterback. If you're just rating quarterbacks on their passing ability, Jaden Milroe's not in the top 25. Alex Orji is not a great passer of the football. He's not. Again, we'll go over the stats in a second, but if you watch the game, that's clear. He's off target way more than he's on target. Throwing it at the feet of receivers, way behind receivers, over the head of receivers. He doesn't like to stay in the pocket. He's got what I call happy feet. I think he leaves the pocket a little too soon sometimes. And this isn't a problem that, like, I'm discovering now and no one else knows about this. Michigan's coaching staff knows this is an issue with Alex Orji. If you read Michigan practice reports all spring, and really going back even before spring practice started, and you would read like Michigan sites on 24/7 or whatever the case, or anywhere where they were discussing Michigan's offseason, their spring practice, what it is they were trying to find or develop or work on, it always came back to the quarterback position in Alex Orji and Michigan trying to figure out, can this guy stand in the pocket and be a quarterback? Like, that's not something that I'm mentioning and it's some great discovery. This has been a question mark about Alex Orji since Michigan recruited him and signed him. And if you watched the spring game, hoping to see something from Alex Orji that would set your mind at ease when it comes to his ability to throw the football, to stand in the pocket, to read a defense, to go through his progressions, to make reads, read coverages, recognize blitzes and fronts or whatever, you didn't see anything in the spring game that made you feel any better about Alex Orji than you felt heading into the game. He's not a great thrower of the football. Same disclaimer I make in every single spring game video that I make. You cannot draw a straight line from what you see in spring with a certain player to what you'll see in the fall. The games are still, 6 months away? 4 months away? We're coming up on May, June, July, 4 months away. He's got 4 more months to improve, to get better, to learn the offense, to work with the coaches and the coaching staff, and for them to develop his confidence and his rhythm with the wide receivers and all of that stuff. So I'm not suggesting that he can't get any better between now and the start of the season. I am suggesting that he's going to have to get a lot better between now and the start of the season for Michigan, I would think, and their fans to be comfortable with him in a throwing position at quarterback. Now, when it comes to running around, athleticism, mobility, escapability, extending the play, rolling out, even taking off downfield for runs, he's got all that down. But again, we knew that. We didn't have to watch a spring game to see that. He had, I think, an 18-yard touchdown run in the spring game. It's debatable whether that would have been a touchdown in a real game. Like every other spring game, you're not allowed to tackle the quarterback in the Michigan game. They did tackle everybody else, though. They're not like Ohio State, where they play patty cake, Baker's man, two-hand touch, pillow fight, where you're not allowed to tackle anybody. It's just the quarterback in the case of Michigan, which is the case for every single team. But if you watch that 18-yard touchdown scramble that Orji had early in the first half of that spring game, I believe it was on the first or second drive, there was a couple of guys, 2 or 3, that had an opportunity, had that been a real game, to tackle Alex Orji. Now, maybe Alex Orji outruns him to the corner. Maybe he puts a spin move on. Maybe he jukes him. Maybe he runs him over. We don't know. Could have been a touchdown. But it's hard. I talk about this in every spring game video when you have an athletic or a mobile quarterback. It's hard to judge that in a spring game because you're not allowed to hit or sack the quarterback or touch him or even really look at him. But again, I didn't need to see that from Alex Orji in the spring game to have any questions answered. We all know he can run around, right? We saw him do it last year. That's when they would put him in those types of situations. That's why they recruited him. Like, there's no question about Alex Orji's ability from the waist down to extend plays, run the ball, all that kind of thing. All of the questions really about Michigan when it comes to the quarterback were, is he going to be able to lead the offense? Can he play the position of quarterback? Pre-snap reads, progressing through the reads once the routes are in place, right? Diagnosing blitzes, putting the ball where it needs to go. And he didn't do those things very well in the spring game. A lot of, like I mentioned, passes behind the wide receiver, at his feet, over their head, that kind of thing. I actually liked the second guy a lot better, Davis Warren. I don't know anything about him. I'm going to be honest. I know nothing about him. For all I know, that's the best he's ever looked, and he's really not all that good. Again, this is just talking about what we saw in the spring game. I'm not even projecting forward to what we'll see in the fall, okay? I happen to think Alex Orji is going to start at quarterback for Michigan. That's what I think is going to happen. But in that spring game, it was clear that Davis Warren is a much better just pure passer than Alex Orji. Now, again, there's more to playing the position of quarterback than that, and running around is part of playing the position of quarterback in today's college football, especially if you decide to play a quarterback that has that skill set, which clearly Alex Orji does. Alex Orji ended up 13 of 18, 103 yards, and had the 18-yard touchdown run. Davis Warren was 6 of 9 for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. Forget the stats, though. Back to the Michigan fans. I just ask you, who threw the ball better? Forget the stats, right? Because is completing a swing pass the same as completing an 18-yard out route? No, like, it's just not, right? Who threw the ball better? It was Davis Warren. If you were playing Ohio State tomorrow, and again, you're not, you can't draw a line from spring to the fall. It's a long time till you play Ohio State, but or fill in the blank team, whatever. Who do you trust on 3rd and 8 right now? Let's say game on the line right now, Michigan fan. 3rd and 8. Who do you trust? Do you trust Alex Orji? Do you trust Davis Warren? Who do the coaches trust? I think it's probably going to go to Alex Orji. Maybe we see a situation where early in the year they play both QBs, but you got to remember Michigan hosts Texas. Is that week 2? I don't think it's week 1. So let's check right now because, those kinds of things matter at a lot of positions, but particularly the quarterback position. You'll see teams, Ohio State did this last year, but you'll see teams early in the year a lot of times play multiple quarterbacks, give everybody an opportunity or give 2 people an opportunity to sort of prove themselves in a game, right? So let's pull up Michigan's schedule here and see when that Texas game. I know that's their first, sort of tough game of the season this year. Okay, it is week 2. So they host Fresno State week 1. If you're the Michigan coaching staff, you can probably beat Fresno State with me at quarterback. So if they are not 100% sure heading into the season who they want to go with, Orji, Warren, or maybe one of the other guys, they have the Fresno State game to kind of play around and figure that out, I would think. I don't know that they'll do that. Maybe they do make up their mind. Maybe they're higher on Orji. Maybe Orji has looked really great in practice, and for whatever reason in the spring game, he was just a little off, nerves or whatever it was. Who knows? The coaches are going to know way more about that situation, obviously, than I am, or anyone watching for that matter. All I know is I watched the spring game, and Alex Orji does not look like a great passer of the football. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Milroe, and some people are going to say Milroe's a higher. Just go back and watch Alabama's games from last year. Milroe really struggles to complete anything in the 10 to 25 yard range. He just struggles. He throws a beautiful deep ball, and like every other human being on the planet, he can throw a swing pass to a running back 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He struggles to throw the ball 10 to 25 yards downfield, and Alex Orji kind of fits that mold to me. Again, he can improve. He's still a young guy, doesn't have a lot of playing experience. He had some last year. He's got the 2 or 3 weeks of spring practice that they've had. Now he's got an off season and a fall camp leading into the start of the season to sort of improve, and maybe he will. But I think Michigan's defense is going to be really, really good. Enough about the quarterback situation. I think their defense is going to be elite, top 5, top 10 defense in the country. Again, you got to remember they promoted Sharon Moore to head coach. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of big changes defensively in terms of scheme or philosophy or what it is they're trying to do defensively. I think they're going to stick with what's been working on defense, and that's the brand of Michigan defense that we're used to seeing over the last 3 or 4 years. I don't expect much of a drop-off there. Running the ball, they lose one of their really good running backs, but they get the other one back, right? It was Blake Corum, I believe, left for the NFL, but Donovan Edwards there. He's really, really good. Didn't play a lot in the spring game. A lot of running backs don't play a lot in spring games. But again, with a spring, if you've got a guy in a spring game that you've seen play for 1 or 2 years, what really do you need to see from him in the spring game? You kind of know what you're getting, especially if they've been really good. Now, if they've been bad or maybe haven't been as good as you hoped they would have been in previous seasons, maybe you watch him in the spring game to see if you can pick up on any improvement. But somebody like Donovan Edwards, nobody needs to see him play in the spring game. We know he's a really good running back, right? We know Michigan's going to have really good running backs, a good line of scrimmage, although they do they do have to replace some pieces there. Wide receiver is always kind of a question mark for Michigan, at least for me it is. Not that they don't have any good ones, but they rarely have that like elite standout wide receiver. And again, when you're talking about Michigan or Georgia or Ohio State or whatever, fill in the blank team, these teams that seem to be in the top 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, every single year, and you're talking about areas they might have question marks at or areas where they might need to improve, you're splitting hairs. You're talking about rich people problems, right? Michigan is not only one of the best teams in the country, they're one of the best programs in the country. They made the playoffs 3 years in a row. They won the Big Ten 3 years in a row. Cashed in this last year with a national title. So I'm sure there's going to be some Michigan fans in the comment section who are going to come on and say this guy's hating on Michigan, this guy just hates me, whatever. Look, I don't know how much more complimentary I can be of Michigan. They're one of the best programs in the country. They just won a national title. You don't need me to pat you on the head. But don't you want to improve I know I do. Coaches strive for perfection and excellence. And I guarantee you there's not a coach on Michigan's team this year or last year who thinks Michigan was perfect or reached a level of complete excellence. Like, you're always striving to improve. Teams are always self-assessing. What's our weakest point? You don't necessarily have to have a weak spot to have a weakest spot, right? some position unit on your team is the worst position unit on your team. It doesn't matter how good you are. You could take a Pro Bowl NFL team, right? Some position unit on that Pro Bowl NFL team is going to be the worst unit on that team. That's what I mean when I have questions about their offensive line. They lose some pieces. They got to fill them in. They lose one of their two running backs. They got to fill that in. Wide receiver. They don't, maybe a household name may be a good way to look at it. And look, I'm a Georgia fan. I don't hide that. You know, I'm a college football fan. Georgia happens to be my favorite team, I guess is maybe a better way to put it. Georgia doesn't have any household name wide receivers either, generally speaking, and they've been pretty good over the last 4 or 5 years too. They had Brock Bowers and maybe Ladd McConkey. I don't know. That's a good question. For those of you that aren't Georgia fans, is Ladd McConkey a household name? He might be. He's a pretty good wide receiver. I think he might go in the second round. He's pretty good, a slot receiver in the NFL. But I don't know. Would y'all consider him like a household name wide receiver? That's what I mean when I talk about Michigan's wide receivers. Like if you go to Walmart in whatever town you live in and you stop 10 college football fans and ask them to name a Michigan wide receiver from last year, how many of those 10 do you think could name one? Again, that's not a slight or an insult towards Michigan. They were undefeated and won the national title. You don't have to have a wide receiver room full of Marvin Harrisons to win a national title, right? So I'm not suggesting that they do. I'm just kind of pointing out what I see when I look at Michigan. They're a blue-collar team, a line of scrimmage, in the trenches team, run the ball and play defense. And it could be that a quarterback like Alex Orji is exactly what they need to sort of continue that trend. Because I don't have any doubt at all that Alex Orji can run for 40 yards a game or 100 yards a game, depending on how Michigan wants to use him. My questions again with Alex Orji, 3rd and 8, game on the line. Can he complete the pass that he needs to keep the potential game-winning drive alive? Can he do that? Offensively, can they find some playmakers at the wide receiver position? And on the offensive line and on the defense, can they replace some of the key pieces that they lost? They recruited an insane level, top 10 almost every single year. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country again. We'll see. But that's my thoughts and analysis sort of on the Michigan spring game, what I saw, my takeaways from it, what I think about their quarterback situation going forward. By the way, for what it's worth, the coaching staff has said it's an open competition still, even after the spring game. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's really an open competition. You know, coaches are so secretive. They would rather cut off their own foot than to tell somebody who their starting quarterback is going to be sometimes. So it could be that Michigan coaches already know 100% for certain who they want to be the starting quarterback, or maybe they are telling the truth in this case. Maybe it is still kind of up in the air who takes the field week 1 at the quarterback position for Michigan. Let me know what you think about their quarterback situation in the comments down below. Are you an Alex Orji guy? Are you a Warren guy? Or is it somebody else? Let me know. Anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Please hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Have a good morning.